Welcome to helpyourmath.com. Today's videos we're going to discuss slopes, and in this video we're going to discuss slopes at specific points and the slope equation on a graph so that you can identify when they're positive, negative, zero, or undefined. And so whenever you have a positive slope and your slope is some positive value, like let's say positive 3, whenever you have a positive equation, your slope is going to go in a positive upright motion from left to right. When it's negative and you have a value of, let's say, negative 2, it's going to go downward from left to right on your graph. And when your slope is equivalent to 0, it's going to go directly across the graph from left to right in an even motion. And these slopes are usually going to always be 0 because they're a constant value. And so the slope value is always going to be 0 when you're calculating the slope equation. Now remember, when you're calculating these slope values, what you're getting is a positive value on both top and bottom when it's positive, or a negative value on top and bottom. When it's negative, you're going to have a positive or a negative on either the top or the bottom, and they're going to be different. And the resulting equation is always going to be a negative result because you're dividing a positive by a negative or a negative by a positive. Whenever you have a 0 equation, the numerator will give you a 0, meaning the y-coordinate points are equivalent. And when we have an undefined slope, it's when you're dividing your slope value by some number over 0, which makes it undefined. This occurs when your x-coordinate stays the same. I'll give you some points for these two equations that make sense here. So if your y values are the same, we have like 2, 5, and 4 and 5. This means your points are not changing on the y-coordinate. So if you have 2, 5 and 4, 5, the 2 points stay parallel to each other. And because of this, you're going to get a 0 solution for your numerator, right? So you have 0 over any number. It could be 0 over, in this case, we have 0 over 2. And in this case, 0 divided by 2 is 0. When you have an undefined function, the values of x will not change. And so you'll have, in this case, it's on the positive side, so we'll say this is 2, 1, and 2, 5. And the way that looks is this. We'll call this coordinate point 2. We'll say this is 1 and 5. And our 2 points are corollary going upward. And for this reason, it's undefined because it's going directly vertical. And now what we have here is two equations, two coordinates for different equations. And what we're going to do is we're going to determine the slope at each point of both of these equations. And for part A, there's going to be two parts because we have one x equation and we have one y equation. So for the point negative 1, 5, we'll draw it out first. Here's negative 1. Here's positive 5. Here's the point. And what we want to determine is both the slope that is an x equation and the slope that is a y equation. So for the x equation and the y equation, we just call them by coordinate. And so what we do here, since we have x equals negative 1 and 5, the coordinate is x is negative 1 and y is positive 5. The coordinate is here, negative 1 and 5. The slope of the x line, which is the vertical line, is going to be going directly through the coordinate point, vertically. And so x becomes the x coordinate of the equation for the vertical line. So the x equation here for the equation of the line is negative 1, which means our slope is undefined. Our y equation for the slope of the horizontal line would be y equals positive 5. And that's how simple it is to find your equations of the horizontal and the vertical lines at a singular point. Now remember, when you're doing the exam, you want to focus on which line you're doing. If it's a horizontal line, it's always going to correspond to your y value. If you're doing a vertical line, it's always going to correspond to your x value. So let's work out problem 2 here for part B. And in part B, we have the coordinate 2, negative 3. So let's move this way over. So we have here 2 and negative 3, positive 2, negative 3. And our point is down here. And for the vertical line, for the x value, we take the x coordinate. And in this case, the x coordinate is positive 2. So our vertical line goes directly through the points. And the point is just 2. And so the x equation is just positive 2. Our y equation then is going directly through negative 3, all the way through and through horizontally. And so this just becomes y equals negative 3. All right? Thank you.